St. Edward's Crown, United Kingdom. Imagine placing a crown on your head that weighs almost 5 pounds. Solid gold, 444 gemstones glinting under blinding cathedral light, and centuries of royal power pressing down on your shoulders. That's St. Edward's Crown, the most sacred object in the British monarchy. And every king or queen who has ever worn it says the same thing. You don't just feel crowned, you feel transformed. Created in 1661 for King Charles II, after the chaos of the English Civil War, this crown wasn't just jewelry. It was a statement. The monarchy is back, stronger than ever. Everything about it is designed to feel ancient, holy, and untouchable. Solid gold, precious stones everywhere. A design inspired by the crown worn by the medieval King St. Edward the Confessor, a ruler believed to have been chosen by God himself. And that's where the legend begins. St. Edward's crown is the symbol of the divine right of kings. For centuries, people whispered that once the crown touches your head, it doesn't just make you a monarch, it legitimizes you. It binds you to 1,000 years of royal ancestors, as if their authority passes directly into your veins. But here's the part most people don't know. Despite its beauty, this crown is brutally heavy. When Queen Elizabeth II wore it, she joked that if she looked down too quickly, it could break her neck. But she also said the moment it touched her head, she felt an overwhelming sense of destiny, as if a lifetime of duty locked into place in a single second. That's why this crown is legendary. It doesn't just appear at coronations, it creates coronations. It marks the exact second when an ordinary human becomes a sovereign, when centuries of British history choose their next guardian. For one moment, under that massive weight, power isn't just inherited, it's earned, accepted, and sealed forever.
Imperial State Crown, United Kingdom. If St. Edward's Crown creates a monarch, then the Imperial State Crown reminds the world exactly who that monarch is. This isn't a ceremonial relic tucked away for coronations. This is the crown the ruler actually wears, especially during the state opening of Parliament, the most watched moment of royal authority. And when you see it up close, you understand why. Because this crown is practically a museum of world-changing gems. Front and center sits the Cullinan II diamond, a stone so massive and flawless that when it was cut from the original diamond, miners thought it was glass. Behind it burns the Black Prince's ruby. Except it's not a ruby at all. It's a spinel, stolen, traded, and drenched in blood through centuries of warfare. Kings died wearing it. Battles were fought over it. And yet here it is, glowing defiantly on the forehead of a modern monarch. And that's where the legend begins. People say the jewels inside this crown don't just sparkle, they remember. Every gem carries a history soaked in triumph, betrayal, and violence. The Black Prince's ruby alone has survived assassinations, rebellions, and invasions. The Cullinan diamond was once so enormous, the world didn't even believe it was real. Together, they form a crown that feels less like jewelry and more like an empire compressed into gold. But the symbolism is even heavier. This crown represents the peak of British imperial power, the age when the sun famously never set on the empire. Wearing it during the state opening of Parliament isn't just tradition. It's a reminder to Parliament, to the world, and to history that the British monarchy still stands, carrying the legacy of centuries. And that's why the Imperial State Crown is legendary. Not just because it contains some of the most famous gems on Earth, but because every gem tells a story of a kingdom that conquered, endured, and evolved. When a monarch wears this crown, they aren't just displaying wealth. They're wearing the weight of an empire.
Crown of Charlemagne, Holy Roman Empire. For almost 600 years, Europe had one crown that didn't just symbolize power. It decided who ruled the continent. The crown of Charlemagne wasn't just placed on an emperor's head, it declared them chosen, ordained, and unstoppable. This wasn't a crown you simply wore. This was a crown you had to earn through war, alliances, and the blessing of the church. When you look at it, it barely resembles a modern crown. 8 golden plates, hinged together like a relic from another world. Each panel bursting with gemstones, sapphires, emeralds, amethysts, and detailed religious imagery. It looks ancient, almost mystical, and that's because it was designed to imitate something far bigger than a monarchy, the divine order of God. And this is where the legend becomes powerful. Charlemagne, the first Holy Roman Emperor, wasn't just a king. He was a ruler believed to be appointed by heaven itself, the man who united Western Europe after centuries of chaos. The crown became a physical extension of that belief. Emperors didn't just wear it, they submitted to its authority. Once it touched your head, your rule wasn't political anymore. It was sacred. But the symbolism went even deeper. See, the Holy Roman Empire was built on a fragile balance, power shared between the emperor and the church. This crown represented that union. Priests placed it on the emperor's head, but the empire's armies protected it. Religion gave it legitimacy, power gave it force. It was the ultimate reminder that Europe's destiny wasn't decided in elections or parliaments. It was forged between altars and battlefields. And that's why the crown of Charlemagne is legendary. It's not just one of the oldest crowns in Europe, it's one of the most influential. For 6 centuries, this crown shaped kings, carved borders, and defined who controlled the heart of Europe. Every emperor who wore it knew one truth. They weren't just inheriting a title, they were stepping into Charlemagne's shadow. A shadow so enormous, Europe still feels it today.
Iron Crown of Lombardy. At first glance, the Iron Crown of Lombardy doesn't look like much. It's small, simple, almost fragile. But don't be fooled. This crown carries a power that terrified kings, inspired emperors, and shaped the destiny of Europe for over 1,000 years. Because hidden inside its golden frame is a thin band of iron said to be forged from a nail used in the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. And that single detail turned this crown into one of the most sacred and feared relics in European history. Created in the early medieval period, the crown is a golden circlet decorated with delicate enamel work and shimmering gemstones. But at its heart sits the iron band, a relic so holy that rulers believed wearing it meant God himself had approved their reign. In a world ruled by faith, this wasn't just symbolism, it was legitimacy, divine endorsement, the kind of power no army could challenge. And it didn't take long before rulers fought for the right to wear it. Holy Roman emperors traveled across mountains and battlefields to be crowned with it. And centuries later, even Napoleon, a man who believed in destiny more than God, demanded to wear the Iron Crown. He placed it on his head and declared, "God gave it to me, beware whoever touches it." To Napoleon, this crown wasn't a relic. It was a weapon of authority. But its mystique goes even deeper, because people believed the iron band could bless the rightful king or curse the pretender who dared to claim the throne. Legends whispered that those who wore it without divine approval would meet disaster, and history seems to agree. Several rulers who seized the crown through force met violent ends shortly after. And that's why the Iron Crown of Lombardy is legendary. Not because it's the biggest or the brightest, but because it carries something no other crown can claim: a direct connection to the crucifixion, a symbol of divine power wrapped in gold. For over 1,000 years, kings didn't just want this crown.
Crown of St. Wenceslas, Bohemia, Czech Republic. The crown of St. Wenceslas is one of the most beautiful crowns in Europe and one of the most feared. Crafted in 1346 for King Charles IV, this crown became the heart of the Czech coronation jewels, a shimmering masterpiece of rubies, sapphires, pearls, and gold. But beneath its beauty lies a legend so dark, so chilling, that even modern leaders refuse to test it. Because this crown is said to be cursed. And not just any curse, a death curse. The story goes that Saint Wenceslas, the patron saint of Bohemia, declared that only a rightful, divinely chosen king may wear this crown. Anyone who puts it on without legitimacy will die within a year. And for centuries, people whispered about rulers and invaders who ignored the warning, only to meet sudden, violent ends shortly after. But the crown's fearsome reputation isn't only myth. It's locked away behind iron doors inside Prague Castle. Not on display, not accessible, not even to the king or president without the presence of 7 key holders, each one holding a specific key needed to unlock the chamber. Even today, no one person is allowed to open it alone. Why? Because this crown is more than a royal artifact. It's a symbol of Czech identity, a reminder of resilience, resistance, and national pride. During Nazi occupation, Reinhard Heydrich, one of Hitler's most feared commanders, was rumored to have secretly worn the crown. Less than a year later, he was assassinated. History records it as coincidence. Legend calls it justice. But whether you believe the curse or not, the impact is undeniable. This crown carries centuries of fear, reverence, and national power. It appeared only during coronations, and even kings treated it with a sense of awe, as if they were stepping into sacred territory. And that's why the crown of Saint Wenceslas is legendary. It's not just a masterpiece of medieval craftsmanship. It's a crown protected by faith, guarded by tradition, and feared by anyone who knows its story. A crown of stunning beauty, and a crown that may kill the one who dares to claim it.
Holy Crown of Saint Stephen. The Holy Crown of Saint Stephen isn't just a crown. In Hungary, it is treated like a living being, the true, eternal ruler of the nation. Kings came and went, dynasties rose and fell, but the crown remained the one thing no one dared to challenge. Because for over 1,000 years, Hungarians believed something extraordinary. A king does not rule over the crown, he rules through it. And the moment you see this crown, you understand why it feels almost mystical. It's unlike any other European crown. The cross on top is tilted, a detail that instantly catches the eye. The artwork is Byzantine, filled with religious icons and ancient symbolism. The crown itself is made from sacred relics, with pieces dating back centuries before Hungary even existed as a kingdom. This wasn't just a royal object. This was the spiritual heart of a nation. The legend says that Saint Stephen, Hungary's first king, received the crown directly from the Pope in the year 1000, a divine endorsement that gave the Hungarian monarchy heavenly legitimacy. But over time, the belief evolved into something even deeper. The crown itself held the authority. A king was merely its guardian. If the crown approved you, your rule was legitimate. If it didn't, your throne was cursed. And history didn't take that lightly. During invasions, the crown was hidden. During wars, armies risked their lives to protect it. During political chaos, leaders bowed before it to prove their right to rule. Even foreign emperors like the Habsburgs understood that to control Hungary, they needed this crown, not the land, not the armies, not the nobles, this crown. But perhaps the most powerful part of its legend is this. Hungarians believed that as long as the Holy Crown survived, the nation would survive. Through Mongol invasions, Ottoman wars, revolutions, and communism, the crown remained a symbol of continuity, a silent witness to a millennium of triumph and tragedy. And that's why the Holy Crown of Saint Stephen is legendary. It's more than gold and gemstones. It's a sacred relic, a national soul, and the only crown in Europe treated as a sovereign entity. A crown that doesn't just crown kings, it creates them.
The Danish crown of Christian IV isn't just a royal accessory, it's the glittering symbol of a nation stepping into its golden age. Crafted in 1596, this crown became the centerpiece of the Danish monarchy during one of the most ambitious eras in Denmark's history. At first glance, the crown is pure Renaissance power. Thick, heavy gold work, carved with incredible precision, wraps around the frame like a fortress of metal. And set into that gold are massive sapphires, deep blue stones that almost seem to glow from within. Together, they create a crown that feels less like jewelry and more like a declaration. Denmark has arrived. But the myths surrounding it push its reputation even further. For centuries, people have linked this crown to the rise of Denmark's naval dominance, its legendary fleets, its expansion, and the national pride that followed. In many ways, the crown became the spiritual companion to Denmark's golden age, a period defined by exploration, military ambition, and cultural transformation. And at the center of it all stood King Christian IV, one of the most iconic and dynamic kings in Danish history. He wore this crown as he shaped the nation's destiny, building cities, expanding the navy, and cementing Denmark as a rising European power. The crown became a visual signature of his rule, bold, heavy, impossible to ignore. That's why this crown remains legendary today. It's not just a relic, it's a reminder of the moment Denmark transformed from a modest kingdom into a nation of influence. Its identity, ambition, and power captured in gold and sapphire.
Swedish crown of Erik XIV, Sweden. The Swedish crown of Erik XIV is one of the most striking royal artifacts in Scandinavia. Beautiful, powerful, and wrapped in the tragic legend of a king who lost both his mind and his throne. Created in 1561, this heavy gold crown was meant to signal the beginning of a new era for Sweden, an ambitious, rising kingdom preparing to carve out its place in Europe. The craftsmanship is unmistakable. Thick, gleaming gold forms the base, while enormous gemstones, rubies, emeralds, sapphires, sit like blazing stars on its surface. It wasn't designed to be subtle. It was designed to intimidate, to impress, to announce Sweden's growing empire-building ambitions. When Erik XIV wore this crown at his coronation, it was more than a royal ceremony. It was a warning to Europe that Sweden was stepping onto the world stage. But glory soon turned into legend, and legend into tragedy. Erik XIV is one of history's most infamous examples of a king undone by his own mind. Stories describe his growing paranoia, hallucinations, and violent outbursts. The crown that once symbolized Sweden's rising power became a haunting symbol of his downfall. The myths say that every time he wore it after his mind began to slip, the weight of the crown seemed to grow heavier, almost as if it was crushing the sanity out of him. And when he was eventually deposed and imprisoned, the crown remained behind as the final reminder of the king he once tried to be. That's why the crown of Erik XIV is legendary. It represents a kingdom on the rise, a monarchy gaining strength, and a ruler who couldn't hold on to the power he fought so hard to claim. A dazzling masterpiece of gold and gemstones, forever tied to the tragic story of a king who lost everything.
Norwegian King's Crown. Norway. The Norwegian King's Crown isn't just a piece of jewelry. It's the shining symbol of a nation reclaiming its identity. Crafted in 1818, this crown marked a new era for Norway, a country emerging from centuries of union with Denmark and Sweden. For the first time, it became clear Norway had its own destiny, its own throne, its own king. The crown itself is a masterpiece of regal elegance. Solid gold forms its sturdy frame, while pearls, emeralds, and amethysts catch the light with a brilliance that commands attention. Every detail whispers authority. Every gem shouts sovereignty. When a Norwegian monarch wears it, they aren't just wearing a crown, they're carrying the story of an entire nation. Legends and myths quickly surrounded the crown. To the people, it wasn't just gold and gems, it was hope crystallized, a symbol of independence and rebirth. It represented the moment Norway stepped out of the shadows of larger neighbors, declaring to the world, "We are our own nation." Its power impact was profound. By being crowned with it, kings and queens weren't just leaders, they were living embodiments of Norway's freedom and pride. The crown visually cemented the country's separation from Denmark and Sweden, a tangible reminder that Norway had returned to the map as an independent kingdom. That's why the Norwegian King's Crown is legendary. It's not the oldest, nor the heaviest, but it is deeply symbolic. A crown that embodies the birth of modern Norway, its sovereignty, and its enduring identity. A crown of gold and jewels, but more than that, a crown of freedom, pride, and national spirit.
Portuguese crown of João VI, Portugal. The Portuguese crown of João VI isn't just a crown, it's a symbol of an empire that spanned continents. Worn by the king who ruled both Portugal and Brazil,
It tells a story of power, survival, and global influence. Crafted with painstaking detail, the crown is a masterpiece of gold and diamonds, with ornate craftsmanship that reflects the wealth and ambition of one of Europe's most unique monarchies. Its story is inseparable from history. In 1807, as Napoleon's armies invaded Portugal, the royal family made an unprecedented move. They fled across the Atlantic to Brazil, bringing the crown with them. This wasn't just an escape, it was the transplantation of an entire monarchy, shifting the center of Portuguese power thousands of miles away. Every diamond, every gold detail reflects not only opulence, but authority over an empire that bridged Europe and South America. It wasn't just a crown, it was a symbol that Portugal still ruled, even from across the ocean, and that the monarchy endured despite wars, revolutions, and global upheaval. Its power impact is remarkable. João VI's crown represented legitimacy over a transcontinental empire, cementing his authority both in Europe and the New World. The crown became an emblem of continuity, resilience, and unmatched prestige. That's why the Portuguese crown of João VI is legendary. It's Europe's only transcontinental royal crown, a reminder that true monarchy isn't just about borders or cities, but about the ability to survive, adapt, and wield power across oceans. A crown of gold, diamonds, and ambition. A crown that defined an empire.
Spanish royal crown. The Spanish royal crown may not have seen countless coronations, but its significance is impossible to overstate. Mostly symbolic, it was used during royal proclamations, yet it carries the weight of centuries of history, of kingdoms united, empires forged, and a nation that once ruled half the globe. Crafted from gold-plated silver, adorned with velvet and sparkling jewels, the crown radiates authority and grandeur. It is simple in function, but every detail whispers power, reminding all who see it that Spain was a force unlike any other in Europe. Legends tie this crown to the union of Spain's most powerful kingdoms, Castile, Aragon, and beyond. It represents the merging of dynasties, the consolidation of power, and the birth of a nation destined to dominate both continents and oceans. And during Spain's Golden Age, this crown symbolized an empire so vast that people said the sun never set on its territories. The power impact of the Spanish royal crown goes beyond ceremony. It was a visual assertion of Spain's dominance, a symbol that communicated wealth, authority, and divine right. Even when worn sparingly, it reinforced the prestige of one of the most formidable empires in history. That's why the Spanish royal crown is legendary. It is more than gold, silver, or jewels. It is the crown of a global empire, a symbol of unity, ambition, and an era when Spain's influence shaped the world. A crown small in use, but massive in historical weight, a true emblem of an empire where the sun never set. The French crown of Louis XV is more than a piece of royal regalia. It's a relic of grandeur, opulence, and ultimately, downfall. One of the few crowns to survive the French Revolution, it stands as a reminder of centuries of absolute monarchy and the dazzling wealth of France's kings. At its center sits a stunning sapphire, framed by intricate goldwork and the iconic fleur-de-lis design, the emblem of French royalty. Every curve, every gem speaks of an era when power and luxury were inseparable, when a crown wasn't just worn, it was displayed as a statement of absolute authority. Legends cling to it like a shadow. This was the last crown worn before the monarchy fell, the crown under which kings ruled with divine right and unchecked power. It witnessed both the glittering heights of Versailles and the brewing storms that would bring the French Revolution crashing down. Its power, impact is undeniable. The crown symbolized not just royal authority, but the very system of governance in France. Centuries of kings asserting their dominance over nobility, clergy, and people alike. And yet it also became a symbol of excess, of a ruling class so detached that revolution seemed inevitable. That's why the French crown of Louis XV is legendary. It embodies the glamour, the wealth, the absolute power, and the dramatic downfall of one of Europe's most storied monarchies. A crown that once defined a nation now serves as a silent witness to history's harshest lessons.
Austrian Imperial Crown. Austria, Habsburg Empire. The Austrian Imperial Crown is more than a jewel. It's the symbol of one of Europe's longest-lasting and most powerful dynasties. Since 1602, this crown has rested on the heads of Habsburg emperors, representing authority, tradition, and divine right. Its design is breathtaking. A giant arch rises above the gold circlet, adorned with exquisite enamel work and religious symbols. Every detail conveys power, faith, and the weight of an empire that spanned continents. The crown wasn't just decoration. It was a visual declaration that the Habsburgs ruled not only by might, but by divine sanction. Legends claim the crown carries protective power for the dynasty. For centuries, the Habsburgs believed it shielded them from harm, guiding the empire through wars, alliances, and political upheaval. It became a talisman as much as a crown, linking the emperor to both God and centuries of imperial authority. Its power impact was unmatched. Wearing it, the Habsburgs embodied a sprawling empire that influenced almost every corner of Europe. It symbolized political dominance, cultural influence, and the unbroken continuity of a family that shaped history for over 600 years. That's why the Austrian imperial crown is legendary. It's not just a crown. It's the legacy of a dynasty, the visual emblem of power, faith, and endurance. A crown that reminds the world what it meant to rule an empire that lasted centuries.
Polish crown of Bolesław I of Poland. The Polish crown of Bolesław I is a crown shrouded in mystery, power, and legend. Known as the Lost Crown, it vanished in the late 18th century, destroyed or stolen, and has never been recovered. Yet its story still captures the imagination of historians, monarchs, and storytellers alike. We only know its appearance through descriptions and old drawings. Even so, it was said to be a masterpiece of medieval craftsmanship, adorned with precious gems and intricate goldwork. It wasn't just a crown, it was a symbol of a nation's strength, unity, and independence during its medieval height. Legends grew around it. Many believed the crown could grant victory to any rightful king who wore it, a talisman of authority and divine favor. To the Polish people, it represented more than royalty. It embodied the very spirit of Poland itself, its resilience and its sovereignty in a turbulent Europe. Its power impact was profound. During its time, it legitimized kings, signaled national pride, and reinforced Poland's place among Europe's major powers. Even today, the crown's disappearance hasn't diminished its influence. Its myth keeps it alive in Polish identity and folklore. That's why the Polish crown of Bolesław I is legendary, a vanished crown lost to history yet immortal through legend, a symbol of a nation's medieval glory and enduring spirit.
Serbian crown of Stefan Dusan, Serbia. The Serbian crown of Stefan Dusan isn't just a royal artifact, it's the emblem of a kingdom at its height. Belonging to Serbia's greatest medieval emperor, this crown symbolizes ambition, power, and the transformation of a small state into a Balkan empire. Its design is breathtaking, reflecting Byzantine influence with intricate gold filigree and carefully set precious stones. Every detail speaks of sophistication and authority, marking the wearer as a ruler whose power was recognized far beyond Serbia's borders. When Stefan Dusan wore it, he wasn't just a king, he was an emperor commanding respect across the region. Legends surround the crown. It was said to bless Serbia with expansion and prosperity, a talisman ensuring the kingdom's strength under Dusan's rule. For the Serbian people, it wasn't merely gold and gemstones, it was a symbol of national pride, ambition, and destiny fulfilled. The crown's power impact was immense. Under Dusan, Serbia reached unprecedented influence, reshaping politics, culture, and trade across the Balkans. This wasn't just ceremonial. This crown represented the authority to command armies, negotiate empires, and assert Serbia's place in European history. That's why the Serbian crown of Stefan Dusan is legendary, is the crown of Serbia's most powerful ruler, a piece of history that embodies ambition, glory, and the enduring legacy of a medieval empire. A crown of gold, stone, and legend, forever tied to the rise of Serbia in European history.